I've witnessed several episodes of budget deliberations, especially in the plenary. And in particular, the budget of the Department of Energy. For so long a time, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, I'm considering that the chosen constituency of Sagip Party List, the urban poor sector, the recurring issue, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, is how the poor people can grapple with the price of electricity that eats up a significant portion of their income. I said, I've been here since 2004, Mr. Speaker, and I think I have gained my right to at least analyze whether or not we're succeeding in our promise to our people, particularly in relation to Republic Act 9136, which I believe was enacted in the year 2001. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, sa buhay po ng isang taong karaniwan, yung pong pagbabayad sa kuryente ay isang sakripisyo. Kung tutuusin po, kung pasisimulan nating buksan uli yung Republic Act 9136, sa Section 2 pa lamang, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, binabanggit na roon ang isang napakalaking kaugnayan kung bakit naitatag ang Department of Energy at saka yung batas na kung tawagin natin ay Electric Power Industry Reform Act or EPIRA. Mr. Speaker, sa Section 2, Chapter 1, Declaration of Policy, letter B, ay nakasaad po ang ganito: to ensure the quality, reliability, security, and affordability of the supply of electric power. Mr. Speaker, kung maging tapat po tayo sa ating sarili, ito bang declaration of policy ito ay naipagkaloob ba natin ayon sa hinihingi ng provision na ito ng Republic Act 9136? Yung quality. Sa quality po, marami pa ring episodes ng brownouts. Minsan po, hindi lang oras, minsan araw, lalong-lalo na po sa parte ng Mindanao. Tikit na rin po dyan yung reliability. Sapagkat kung hindi reliable po ang pinagkukunan ng kuryente o supply ng kuryente, ganun din po ang nangyayari. Security. At yun nga pong tinatawag nating affordability of the supply of electric power. In all honesty, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, can we openly admit that we have complied with this particular provision on this declaration of policy with respect to the current situation of our consumers, especially those that are belonging to the poorest of the poor?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, yung the process of being able to provide what you have stated is a continuing work in progress. So every time our population would increase, there is an increased demand by our consumers. So, ang Department of Energy naman po, the Department of Energy is really doing its best through its attached agencies like the National Electrification Administration, the National Power Corporation, to address this continuing increase in demand. Although hindi po siya perpekto, na hindi naman ibig sabihin na pagdating sa taong 2020, for example, na yung pinagplano ay 100% na mapeperpekto niya to address yung mga na-state nyo po sa Section 2, Chapter 1 ng EPIRA Law. But nevertheless, it is a continuing job, especially of the Department of Energy and its attached agencies, to see to it that yung mga kinakailangan ng ating mga mamamayan na murang kuryente, stable and reliable power ay mabigay po sa ating mga consumers. So it is although Mr. Speaker, a distinguished colleague, na inaamin naman po natin na hindi madaling, it is not an easy job or an easy task to do because of the increasing supply needed by our constituents. And marami pa pong ibang factors na kailangan natin i-consider. Siyempre, isa na po yung, of course, yung presyo ng electricity ay pabago-bago. So, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, rest assured that the Department of Energy will continue in its mandate together with its attached agencies of providing what is required of them under the law. Mr. Speaker, distinguished
Mr.
colleague.
Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, with all due respect, ako po'y nalulungkot sa inyong katugunan, sapagkat nasabi ko nga po kanina sa umpisa, 13th Congress, nandito na po ako. Yan pong sinasabi ninyong sagot sa napakasimpleng tanong, ay paulit-ulit ko na pong naririnig. Kasi po, yung ating mga mamamayan, lalo na po yung pangkaraniwan, sinasabi ko nga, hindi nila maintindihan, hindi nila ma-relate ang kanilang buhay. Ano ba yung budget na pinag-uusapan ninyo dyan? Palagi na lang, year in and year out, you're talking about the budget. You're deliberating the budget of every agency and department of government. Pero kahit kailan, you are unable to relate to us, ano ba ang nahihita namin? Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, ang gustong maramdaman ng pangkaraniwang tao habang dinidebate natin ang inyong budget, ano naman po yung para sa kanila? Hindi naman po kalabisan, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na maghintay sila sa panig nila, sa sarili nila, maramdaman nila na itong ginagawa natin ito ay nagkakaroon ng mabisang resulta sa kanilang buhay. Araw-araw, monthly, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, yung monthly bill po nila ng kuryente, parang nagiging isang palaisipan. It is like a conundrum. It's a puzzle. Bakit po ang pangako po ng 9136, affordability of the supply of electric power. Napakasimple po ng katagana yon. Affordability speaks of a level of price that is reachable to the ordinary consumers. Hindi po nila ito maramdaman, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Kaya po ang tanong natin, huwag nating gagawing katwiran na ito po ang ginagawa natin, ganito po ang nagawa natin, ito pa po ang gagawin natin. Pero kapag hindi po natin nagagawa yung pangako dito under the Declaration of Policy, lahat po ng ginagawa natin ay hindi kumukonekta sa puso ng mamamayan. Basahin ko po yung letter C, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. To ensure transparent and reasonable prices of electricity. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, yun po ay madaling intindihin kahit na ordinaryong tao. To ensure transparent and reasonable prices of electricity in a regime of free and fair competition. Ito muna po ako doon, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Nagawa na po ba natin yun? Reasonable prices of electricity. Ano po ba yung reasonable? Ang reasonable po na presyo ay yung level ng presyo na kayang-kayang abutin ang isang ordinaryong mamamayan. Yun po yung reasonable. Ito po ay declaration of policy. Isa pong batas na ating ginawa, ilang taon na po ang nakararaan. 2001 pa po yun. Bakit hanggang ngayon, hindi po nagkakaroon ng katuparan kung pag-uusapan natin ay maramdaman lamang po ang ginagawa natin ngayon? Kasi, napanig po nila, ayan na naman. Budget hearing na naman sila, hindi naman natin maramdaman kung anong ginagawa nila. Meron po silang katwiran na magtanong, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, this is a recurring issue. If this representation talks to them in town hall meetings, this is a recurring question. Sabi nila, kailan po kaya kami makakatikim? Kahit minsan lang, yung mababang kuryente. Hindi po nila maramdaman. So there is something wrong in the system, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. We are not fulfilling this. We are failing our people. Basahin ko pa po yung kasunod. Letter F, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. To protect the public interest as it is affected by the rates and services of electric utilities. Mr. Speaker, totoo po ito. Ang public interest is always affected by the rates of electric utilities and other providers of electric power. Bakit po? Pag mahal po ang kuryente, mahal ang production, mahal po yung produkto, kawawa na naman po yung consumer na bibili. Maliban pa po, doon sa sinasabi natin, pangkaraniwan na, pag nakita na po nila yung bill ng kuryente, Sir Speaker, Your Honor, yung kabanan ng dibdib na naman po nila, palaging nandun. Ang tanong ko nga po ganito, kung ang atin pong mga budget na ginagawa, at ito po ay tumutukoy sa efficiency and effectiveness of the programs that are being installed by the department, bakit hindi po yun tumutuloy sa benepisyo na maaari nating maiabot sa mga ordinaryong consumers? Ito po yung tanong nila. Ito po yung tanong nila. Paano po natin sila sasagutin? Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, naghahanap po ako ng tulong sa inyo. Pagbalik ko uli sa kanila, gusto ko po dala-dala ko ang isang kasagutan na tatanggapin nila. Sa ngayon po kasi wala akong masasabi sa kanila. Sasabihin ko na naman, kagaya ng sinabi ko sa inyo, paikot-ikot na lamang po kami. Mr. Speaker, sasamantalahin ko na po kung medyo hirap po kayong sumagot muna. Bibigyan po natin ng halimbawa para siguro kahit papano, from generalities to situational, for example. Pag-usapan po natin yung Republic Act 9209, Mr. Speaker. Your Honor. Itong Republic Act 9209, ito po yung prangkisa ng Meralco. Tama po ba, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, the line of questioning of the Honorable Deputy Speaker Marcoleta can properly be addressed by another agency which is handled by Representative Mikey Arroyo.
Alam ko
which
po
is
yun.
the
Alam ko po
Energy Regulatory Commission. But
Nakagustuhan ko lang makagawa po ng example kasi para lalo nating masagot sana. Gusto kong pagtulungan natin, hanapin natin ang isang pinakamabuting sagot na sa maraming panahon po ay hinahanap-hanap po ng ating mga ordinaryong consumers. Hindi ko po patatagalin yung tungkol dito kasi may babasahin lang po ako na isang section dito na kaugnay po ng Declaration of Policy na binanggit ko kanina sa 9136. Magkakambal po kasi sila eh. Sa Section 4 po kasi nitong 9209, yung grantee po, ito yung Meralco, ano po, the grantee shall supply electricity to its captive market in the least cost manner. Pagkatapos sinundan pa po na the grantee shall charge reasonable, just, and competitive power rates. So, may kakambal po siya. Mula po doon sa Declaration of Policy ng Republic Act 9136, ganun din po yung nakalagay doon sa prangkisa ng Meralco. Ibig ko sabihin po, bilang pagtutulad, paghalimbawa, talaga pong konektado doon eh. So kung ang pinakamalaki pong distribution utility dito sa ating bansa ay ang Meralco, nagagawa ko po siyang halimbawa kung ang pag-uusapan ay yung tanong po kanina, paano kaya mararamdaman at kailan mararamdaman ng pangkaraniwang consumer? Sapagkat matagal na po eh. 2001 na po eh. Baka dumating po ang panahon, wala nang maniwala sa atin, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Baka sabihin nila, parang bulahan na yata ito. Parang paikot-ikot po tayo. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, I think we owe it to our people to give them an honest and reliable answer. Meron po ba kayong gustong isagot, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, meron po tayong tinatawag na competitive selection process, CSP, that will address the generation cost, which covers around 50% of the entire cost. The Energy Regulatory Commission, ERC, although iba po yung mag-handle sa pag-sponsor sa kanya, regulates the transmission and distribution sectors. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague.
Baka hindi rin po maintindihan yung sagot na yun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Ang ERC po talaga, ang regulator, mag-a-apply siyempre po yung distribution utilities ng rates niya at a-approvein ng ERC. Ang nagiging problema, Mr. Speaker, ang sabi nga dito sa prangkisang sinabi ko, o doon sa Declaration of Policy, kailangan transparent tayo. Alam po ba ninyo, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, doon sa rate fixing na ina-approve ng ERC, wala po akong makitang transparency. Bibigyan ko po kayo ng halimbawa. Yung lamang pong formula ng pagkukompute ng rate ng Meralco, magmula doon sa tinatawag nilang RORB, na ngayon ay pumunta sa rehimen ng tinatawag nilang PRB or performance-based rate. Sinubukan ko po kasi naintindihin kung paano po nila kinukwenta. Pinadalhan po ako ng 5 malalaking compendium po. Ito po yung formula. Mas mataas pa po sa akin yung binigay na compendium. Kaya ko po bang unawain yung formula na yun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na mataas pa sa akin? Tinanong ko pa nga yung isa sa kanila eh. Baka ako maski si Dr. Albert Einstein hindi maintindihan ito eh. Paano magiging transparent ito kung ako hindi ko rin maintindihan to? Sino man po sa atin dito, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, walang makakaintindi do sa equation formula na ginagamit ng ERC kung pag-uusapan ay yung rate fixing, kung magkano ang isisingil sa mga consumer.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, ang Department of Energy provided that there would be a competitive selection process. The CSP, yun po yung isang ginagawa ng Department of Energy to see to it that the cost para ang presyo, ang cost na babayaran ng ating mga consumers ay siguradong ang tinatawag nila the least cost possible, but not necessarily the cheapest, the least cost possible based on the formula. So the ERC, Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the next agency to be sponsored here on the floor, probably can answer the other questions being asked by the Honorable or my distinguished colleague, the Honorable Rodante Marcoleta. But to add, it can be gleaned that about 15% of the charges are assessments pursuant to EPIRA and ERC resolutions with respect to transmission, distribution, systems losses, charges. These are pursuant to pre-established formulas that are subject to evaluation of and approval of ERC. Sila po ang next sa floor dito. So the pricing methodologies for generation charges are applied by ERC for generation charges. So yung katanungan nyo po, probably the Honorable Mikey Arroyo, who is the one sponsoring the Energy Regulatory Commission, can best answer that. But as far as the Department of Energy is concerned, pinabay na po ng Department of Energy at they did their best by giving in what we call the CSP, competitive selection process. So at least magiging mas magiging least cost to our consumers based on the CSP. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, the Department of Energy is the primary agency that is supposed to operationalize Republic Act 9136. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague.
Thank you. And in relation to that, at the very least, we expect programs that will be undertaken by the Department of Energy in order to realize, eventually, the lowering of prices or the tariff of electricity. For example, this representation is assuming that there are programs that will entail competition, because only competition in the final analysis will eventually lower the price of electricity. Sa ngayon po kasi, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, Samantalang sinasabi nga rito sa Declaration of Policy na kinakailangan mayroong economic efficiency and enhanced competitiveness of Philippine products in the global market. Kailan po natin magagawa yon? Ang sabi rito po, sa binasa ko, na saknong dito, there should be a regime of free and fair competition and full public accountability. So kung wala pong competition, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, hindi po natin kailanman ma-achieve ang isang level ng presyo na kayang abutin natin kahit sa mga darating na panahon. So kinakailangan maipaliwanag natin ano ba yung nakalatag na programa para mapaniwala natin ang ating mamamayan. Mga kaibigan, magtiis-tiis lang po tayo. Ito po ang programa po na nakikita namin sa Department of Energy. Kapag ito pong lahat na ito ay natapos, ako po'y naniniwala na ang presyo ng elektrisidad ay talagang abot kaya na natin. O ano pong sasabihin ko sa kanila? Ano pong programa ang pwede ko sabihin sa kanila? Yun po yung inihingi natin. Ilan po ba yung mga power generation companies ngayon? Palagay nyo, mabibilang lang sa daliri siguro. Siguro 6, 7, 8. Tayo po ba'y magdadagdag ng mga power generation companies para sa ganon marami yung magkukumpit? Kung wala pong competition, ano yung sinasabi po sa Declaration of Policy that there should be a regime of fair and free competition? Yun po sana yung gusto naming malaman mula sa inyo, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, if you look at the entire picture, we already have that competitive selection process which the Department of Energy put in place, keeping in mind the consumers.
Kailan po yun?
Well, 2018, nailagay na po yung competitive selection process, Mr. Speaker.
Kung nailagay na po yung competitive selection process,
if I may, Mr.
bakit
Speaker,
hindi po nararamdaman yung pagbaba ng presyo?
Well, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, through the years, through the long years that we have, 2018, nailagay po yan. So, the start is 2018 and yan na po ang pinaka magandang policy na ibigay ng Department of Energy para mas maging transparent siya.
The Speaker, Your Honor.
The competitive selection process is open. It's open po. The Department of Energy requires the posting of the terms of preference, the details of the need of the consumers. So, ni-require rin po ng Department of Energy to also provide for no pass of hidden charges. So, doon pa lang po sa paglagay ng CSP ng DOE, at least nakikita po natin na nandun po yung concern ng Department of Energy to our consumers.
Sana po, Mr. Speaker,
that is the best
ay magagamit ko at
policy
matatala ko.
of giving it or making it open and transparent, the CSP, competitive selection process, na hindi na po sila pwede basta dumiretso sa isa, but it will be a selection process that will be transparent to all. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague.
With due respect to the Deputy Speaker, your time is up.
Sana lamang po, magwa-wind up ako, Mr. Speaker. Ito pong batas na ito, inaipasa natin 2001. Ang sinasabi po ninyo, yung mga competitive processes na binabanggit nyo, 2018. Paano po natin mapapaniwala? Bakit naman po meron tayong Declaration of Policy 2001, ang sinasabi po ninyo, ginawa natin itong mga bagay-bagay na ito, 2018 na. Paano po tayo paniniwalaan ng ating mga consumers, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor? Kaya pala hanggang ngayon, hindi natin nararamdaman. Ganun po ba yun?
Well, actually, kung titingnan nyo po, dapat nga 2013 pa siya. Eh kaso, there was a delayed implementation due to a TRO, a temporary restraining order. But the Supreme Court decided in May 2019. So, ngayon pa, bago lang po siya. So probably in the years to come, with this new policy of competitive selection process, which is more transparent, which is more open, it will be to the benefit of our consumers. So the different consumers in the different areas in the Philippines. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague.
Sige po, kung gando lamang po ang kaya nating ipaliwanag muna sa ating mga mamamayan, eh wala po talaga, hindi ba, Mr. Speaker? Alangan naman sisihin ko yung Korte Suprema na naman dito. Baka hindi na ako paniwalaan. Salamat po, Mr. Speaker.